There's more to life than being happy. I used to think the whole purpose of life was pursuing happiness. Everyone said the path to happiness was success, so I searched for that ideal job, the perfect boyfriend, the beautiful apartment. But instead of ever feeling filled, I felt anxious and adrift. And I wasn't alone, my friend. They struggled with this too. Eventually, I decided to go to graduate school for positive psychology to learn what truly makes people happy. But I discovered that changed my life. The data show that changes happiness can make people unhappy. And what really struck me was that the suicide rate has been rising around the world and recently reached a 30-year high in America. Even though life is getting objective better by really every conceivable standard, more people feel hopeless, depressed, and alone. There's emptiness, not a way good people do not have to be clinical practice to feel it. Sooner or later, I think we all wonder, is this all there is? And according to research, what predicts as despair is not a lack of happiness, it's lack of something else. A lack of having meaning in the life. But that raises some questions for me. Is there more in life than being happy? And what's the difference between being happy and having meaning in life? Many psychologists define happiness as a state of comfort and ease, feeling good in the moment. Meaning, though, is different. The renowned psychologist Marcus Seligman says meaning comes from belongs to and serving something behind yourself, and from developing the best within you. Our culture is obsessed with happiness, but it came to see that seeking meaning is the more fulfilling path. And the study showed that people who has meaning in life, the more resilient, they do better in school and work, and even live longer. So this all made me wonder, how can we each live meaningfully? To find out, I spent 5 years interviewing hundreds of people and reading those thousands of pages of psychology, neuroscience, and philosophy. Bringing it all together, I found there are what I call 4 pillars of a meaningful life. And we can each create a life of meaning, but that's the sum or all of these pillars in our life. The first pillar is belonging. Belonging comes from being a relationship with your values who you are intrinsically and when you value others as well. But some groups and relationships deliver a cheap form of belonging. You are valued for what you believe, for who you hate, not for who you are. True belonging springs from love. It lives in moments among individuals, and it's a choice you can choose to cultivate belonging with others. Here's an example. Each morning, my friend Johnny buys a newspaper from the St. Street vendor in New York. They don't just conduct a transaction though, they take a moment to slow down, talk, and treat each other like humans. But one time, Johnny thinks have the right change, and the vendor said, "Don't worry about that." But Jonas insists on paying. So we went to the store and bought something he didn't need to make a change. But when he gave the money to the vendor drew back. It was hard. He was trying to do something kind, but Jonas had rejected him. I think we all object people in the small ways like this without realizing it. I do. I walked by someone I know and barely acknowledged them. I check my phone when someone's talking to me. These acts devalue others. They make them feel invisible and unworthy. And when you live with love, you create bonds that lift each of you up. For many people, belonging is the most essential source of meaning, those bonds to family and friends. For others, the key to meaning is the second pillar, purpose. Now, finding a purpose is not the same thing as finding a job that makes you happy. Purpose is less about you want than what you give. A hospital custodian told me the purpose is healing sick people. Many parents tell me my purpose is raising my children. The key's purpose is using your strength to serve others. Of course, for many of us, that happens through work. That's how we contribute and feeling needed. But that also needs the issues like disengagement at work, unemployment, low workforce depreciation. These are just economic problems that are existential one too. Without something worthwhile to do, people flounder. Of course, you don't have to find purpose everywhere, but purpose gives you something to live for, someone that drives you forward. The third pillar of meaning is also about setting beyond yourself the completely different way. Transcender. Transcender states are those rare moments when you reach above hospital bustles of daily wave. Your sense of self falls away and you feel connected to higher reality. For one person I talked to, transcender came from same art. For another person, it was a chart. For me, a marker and happen through writing. Sometimes I get so in a zone and I lose all sense of time and place. And these transcendent experiences can change you. One study had students look up the 200 feet tall electric tree for 1 minute. But afterward, they found less different. They even behaved more generously when given the chance to help someone. Belonging, purpose, transcender. Now the fourth pillar of meaning I found tends to surprise people. The fourth pillar is storytelling. The story you tell yourself about yourself. Creating a narrative from the events of your life brings clarity. It helps understand how you became you. But we don't realize we are author of our stories and changes the way we're telling them. Your life is just a listening event. You can edit, interpret, and later tell you the story, even if it's constrained by the fact. I met a young man named Emeka who'd been paralyzed playing football. After his injuries, Emeka told him, "My life was great playing football, but now, look at me." People would tell stories like this. My life was good, now it's bad. They tend to be more anxious and depressed. And that was Emeka for a while. But with time, he started to weave a different story. His new story was, before my injury, my life was purposeless. I partied a lot and was pretty selfish guy. But my injury made me realize I could be a better man. That added to his story changes Emeka's life. After telling the new story to himself, Emeka starts mentoring kids and discovers what his purpose was, serving others. The psychologist Emeka called this redemptive story where the bad is redeemed by the good. People leading meaningful life he's found that tends to story about their life defined by redemption, growth, and love. But what makes people change their story? Some people get help from a therapist, but you can do it on your own too, just by reflecting on your life thoughtfully. How do you define experience shaped you when you lost, when you gain? That's what Emeka did. You won't change your story overnight. It can take years and be painful. After all, we all suffer and we all struggle. But embracing those paper memories can lead to new insight and wisdom, to finding that good that's just in you. Belonging, purpose, transcendent storytelling. Those are 4 pillars of meaning. When I was younger, I was lucky enough to be surrounded by all of pillars. My parents ran a Sufi meeting house from a hole in my trio. Sufism is a spiritual practice associated with the whirling dervishes and poetry. Twice a week, Sufis would come to our home to meditate, drink Persian tea, and share story. Their practice also involved serving all of creation through small acts of love, which meant being kind even when people wronged you, but it gave the purpose to rein in an ego. Eventually, I left home for college, and without the daily graduing of Sufism in my life, I found unmoored, and I started searching for the things that make life worth living. That's what sent me on a journey. Looking back, I now realize the sushi house has a really culture of meeting. The pillar was part of the architecture, and the presence of pillar helped us live deeply. Of course, the same principle applies in other strong communities as well, good ones and bad ones. Gangs, cults. These are cultural meetings that use the pillar and give people something to live and die for. But that's exactly why we as a society must offer better fraternity. We need to build this pillar with our family and our institution and help people become their best selves. But living a meaningful life takes work. It's an ongoing process. Each day goes by, we constantly creating our life, adding to our story. And sometimes we can get off track. Whenever that happens to me, I remember a powerful experience I had with my father. Several months after I graduated from college, my dad had a massive heart attack that should have killed him. He survived, and when I asked him what was going through his mind as he faced his death, he said all he could think about was needed to live would be there my brother and me, and that gave him the will to fight for life. When he went under anesthesia for emergency surgery, instead of counting back for 10, he repeats our names like a mantra. He wanted our name to be the last word he spoke on earth if he died. My dad is a carpenter and a suspy. It's a humble life, but it's a good life. Lying there facing death, he has a reason to live. Love. His sense of belonging within his family, his purpose as dad. His transcends medication repeating our names. These, he says, are the reasons why he survived. That's the story he tells us himself. That's the power of a meaning. Happiness comes and goes, but when life is really good and when things really bad, having meaning gives you something to hold on to you. Thank you.